right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the City Life podcast, and our next guest is a Cage Fury FC fighter, a massive prospect in the world of mixed martial arts who continues to build his highlight reel. He's a fighter. He's a family man. He's the candy man, Max Quinones. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
What's up, brother, man? I'm blessed. My little baby girl's in the background making some noise. She's ready for some yumness. How are you holding up, man?
I said you're the family man, so it's on brand. No, this is great to connect, man. It's been in the works for a while, so let's just dive into it. I have to ask right off the bat, where does the nickname come from? Because it's a unique one, and I love it.
So, believe it or not, I mean, it is really cool that it correlates to a horror character, but it started back. Do you remember the show when I was 17 on MTV?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so it was around that same time frame. I was a freshman in high school, and my mom was just like, I'm done giving you $20 for the movies. Like, here's your last $20 and don't ask me for a single blessed thing again, kind of deal for the movies. So then I went to that same $20, went to Walmart, bought my first box of candy, and I just started flipping candy. So in school, they knew me as the candy man. And when I was starting my amateur career, it was known as the hitman. Like, I went with like the hitman aspect from like one of the coaches I used to work. But I was like, you know what? There's been things in my life, like I went through a traumatic like car accident, some traumatic things. A buddy of mine was shot and murdered in front of me and things like that. So those things woke me up in the sense that I could just be my true authentic self, and like technically I'm not supposed to be doing this second run again with fighting or just like in life in general. So the fact that I'm just gonna live it my fullest self, no matter how or what people say. That's where it came back to, like, just go back to my roots of enjoying myself. Like, it's that hustler grind mentality of like, I had my wrestling bag, my candy bag. I used to sell 2 boxes a day, 4 days out of the week, whatever's left over was on Fridays. And someone that I used to know back then, her mom used to work at the wholesale, like BJ's, Costco's. Like, she worked at BJ's, but she would get the employee discount plus the coupons that you can stack on top. So I would get those boxes of 30 candies for like $5, $7 a pop. And then whatever's left over was on Fridays. So then that's how I was just known in school as a candy man.
That's awesome, man. And I saw in your post-fight speech, you paid tribute to your friend who passed away. I mean, we don't have to dive into it in depth or anything, but can you just talk about like just how important getting that out to the public was after that big moment for you?
Just thank you for everything. And shout out to my boy Wolf. He was actually shot and murdered right in front of me not that long, a couple years back. This 30-year anniversary is coming up. So RIP Wolf. And we're going to make it big, do it big for everyone.
Definitely a big moment. I mean, my debut, I went to the camera and you couldn't really hear too much, but I shouted out because this is around the same time frame. It was the end of July that everything went back in 2020. So in the bullet was, I really think it was meant for either myself or my brother, that we were involved in the little situation that not like we started anything. It's just wrong place, wrong time, and people get a little trigger happy and whatnot. And it was ultimately meant for us. It's just my buddy was caught in a crossfire, and it's someone we grew up with since middle school. Like, I've known him since 6th grade, and now during that time it was 25. I was 25 at that time. Just turned 25. So seeing like we took him to the hospital, his eyes literally were just rolling back like right in front of me, kind of deal. So like you see life like being taken out of someone, and it hits you different, and it makes you reflect, go into like a mental like growth aspect, because like your name only dies when you stop speaking it into existence. So we're just gonna keep on pushing forward, keep striving, and there's different things that we're gonna keep lining up to where his name does live on. Not just in this aspect, but forever.
That's amazing. You and your brother, I mean, strong individuals for sure. And I know a traumatic incident like that, you're always going to have to keep working on that. But no, thanks for sharing. My condolences, of course. It just really solidified for me and a lot of the viewers, even when we were doing our fight companion, where, you know, we saw your celebration. It was, you know, such a high there. And then we all kind of recognized, like, this guy's a good person too. He's a good human, like, especially after you just pouring your heart out to the audience there. So appreciate you sharing, you know, on that platform and this platform as well. Let's get back to some of these more lighthearted questions here. One of our subscribers, he's gonna kill me for asking this. I won't bring up his username because he says he doesn't want you to beat him up. But he asked if yes, how much your hair do cost, and if it costs more than what Cage even pays you for a show and win.
Well, it was actually I'm blessed. Well, Barbers R Us. That's my brother D Barber is actually my brother-in-law. So my oldest brother had a thing with his sister, and they have a baby in the whole bit. But I've known him since I was like probably 5 or 7 years old. So he did my first crazy hair design. It was literally bricks and my name coming out my the back of my eye. And I was, I think, 5th grade. And then on forward, I just had like an idea of like just a design because it's gold, and the premise of it is supposed to be like different trails that lead to gold. And Jordan Barrows, he's my favorite wrestler, and his favorite quote is "All I see is gold." So that's where the top portion at least came from. Like, we wanted to make a trademark to where it just leads to all gold. And then this is all free game, but he gets creative and he does his beautiful magic work is growing out now. Honestly, I give him 2 tickets, and as we keep ascending, then the more income will come after that. So the next step, I mean, he's willing to put designs on my head for businesses and whatnot. So we're lining something up to where he'll get nice, not only tickets, but also some compensation on top of that as well. And then as we just keep ascending, like he'll get broken off a really good chunk of change, because it does make a difference. Like, if I didn't have this kind of haircut, I'll just be a regular Hispanic fighter. You know what I mean? That is dropping people, and I'll make my name from the skills. But this definitely takes it to a whole nother level.
You said it there, and your awareness for that is huge, because that's just it. Like, I watch so much regional MMA, so much pro MMA, that like I remember highlights, but sometimes I don't remember the person. But as soon as I saw your your highlight and the hair, I was like, it's recognizable. And a lot of people who, again, just, I don't even want to say are casual MMA fans, they follow all the promotions. They know who you are, again, because of those highlights, but also because, oh yeah, there's the guy with the crazy hair design. And that's so smart. And yeah, get those brands in it before you hit the UFC, because you know they won't allow that at all. So where did it all start for you in the fight game? You referenced wrestling a few times there. Did it start on the wrestling mat, or were you always kind of a fighter?
Oh, dude, my mom used to get called like every week for me to like, get in trouble for fighting. So my first fight that I actually threw like punches, not just like fake WWE like was in 5th grade. It was after the George St. Pierre fight. It was on Spike TV when he fought Matt Hughes. And then I just see him drop him. And I'm like, wow, I want to be able to do that to someone. So it had to have been either the next day or that weekend. We were playing street ball. And you know how street ball goes. Like, you're able to push, shove, whatever. So this kid got mad that I shoved him. So we just ended up fighting. And I remember beating him like really good. And it was just because of like the striking and stuff. I'm like, wow, like it felt good. I don't know, something about it felt like a different power and whatnot. And I didn't grow up with my pops, and not to really bring up like whole sob story the whole bit, but I didn't have that channel or the financial means to really channel that energy that was the underlying cause of like not having my pops around, kind of deal. Like, I had frustration, anger like built up. So I got into fights pretty much like either every other day or every week. The school would get called, my mom, and say, hey, look, you need to pay for your son. My stepdad would have to come get me. And then 8th grade ended up being a really bad fight, to where the kid got seriously injured, but he was trying to bully disabled kids, and I didn't appreciate that, because my oldest brother, he's the one that hops on your podcast and whatnot, and he comments and whatnot. So he's in a wheelchair and everything like that. And I just never appreciate people that are bullies. And so I hurt him pretty bad during that fight. And my pops used to do wrestling to keep in shape, but football is his main sport. And he was like, dude, like, we need to get you into wrestling. Like, like this is it. So my first like wrestling conditioning, both my wrestling coaches in high school were former Marine and former Army. So like
Oh, wow.
or like it really shaped me and tied me up to where it just built that whole character of like, all right, now like there's a base. How can we now translate it into the fighting side? And then the scholarship fell through for wrestling, so I didn't decide to go to college because I didn't want to bury myself into crazy amount of debt for school for a business degree. So I was like, you know what, the same money I would spend towards college, let me just put it towards it fighting. Let me see what happens. And then it just started taking off. First year went 5-0 within that 1 year, and then lost back-to-back losses. Took the time to relearn everything. Came back 3-0. Then had my car accident, and then fought my last amateur fight before going pro. And then ever since then, it's been off to the races.
It's so fascinating to me because I'm from Canada, and before we jumped on the podcast here, you know, I let you know that. And I mean, up there, we play street hockey, not street ball, unless you're in Toronto, I guess. Everywhere else it's mostly street hockey. There's not a lot of wrestling. Like, obviously, we don't have the NCAA. We have our college league, but it's, you know, it's night and day compared to the United States. So a lot of people get that structure from different types of sports. And I don't even want to say hockey, because hockey has its own internal like culture issues and stuff like that as well. But people tend to go just to martial arts for that discipline. But it's so cool that you can also, you know, go just like the purest martial art path in the United States. But wrestling offers so much of those things that you learn in traditional martial arts anyways, like the structure, channeling, whatever it is, anger and emotions, and, you know, in your case and a lot of fighters' cases as well. It's just so fascinating to me, and I love it that the United States, you know, has the NCAA, and even at the high school level has those programs to help youth and also polish those maybe like diamond in the rough skills that clearly you had as well to send you to the next level. So that always fascinates me, and I absolutely love it. Like, I did a little bit of wrestling in high school, but again, Canadian high school, it was nothing like what you guys get in the States, and especially in Florida that has, you know, a ton of great wrestling programs at the high school level and the NCAA as well. And you mentioned your amateur career there. Why was it so important for you to get reps in amateur before jumping pro? Was it just because you were just so new to the fighting game in general, and you're like, I might as well fight on the amateur scene before even trying to go to the next level?
No, so the biggest takeaway, like, so I really wanted to, because where I'm from, there's only so many like UFC fighters, and like when I was coming up, people were only doing like little local shows. It wasn't like CFFC was coming into our town. The only other promotion was like Titan FC down in the South area. I would see my other pro teammates like do things and stuff like that. And I grew up with two older big brothers. So my biggest takeaway was, all right, let me see how they're doing it and pick and choose what I like, what I don't like, and make sure when I do turn pro, it's all gas, no brakes, because you could restart your record whenever you turn amateur pro. So I really make sure to not only invest my time in the cage, really like be comfortable, like going all 3 rounds, whatever the case may be, and then develop the knockout part, because that's really what I wanted to develop. Like I bumped up to 35, 45 even as an amateur and beat people in that aspect. But the stand-up is where I want to really thrive as I went to pro, because that's where fights happen. People want to see people bang it out, fight, get knocked out or submitted, and get those finishes. And I think that was the biggest takeaway too. And the car accident. The car accident did put me out for like 3 years. So during that time, it was just God saying, hey, look, mentally, something was blocking me in order to now be where I am today. So I think that's just really the only reason why I took my time. I wanted to make sure financially because people were talking about fire pay. I need to make sure that I found a job that allowed me to make quick money like sales, and then be able to take time off whenever I needed to. So sales is something that I wanted to dive into. Plus, you got to sell yourself whenever you're on the camera, the whole bit. Making sure the weight was good, make sure the diet and everything as far as that was good. My diet used to be really bad, but I used to make weight. And now it's just with effortless grace and ease, because I switched my whole diet up. And there's still room to improve. And I'm still improving every day. So as long as I had that general base, then now I can be more creative and then see other things what's going on. So that's really why it's important to invest your time as an amateur, because once you turn pro, there is no going back. And you lose one time, it could take you 2 or 3 fights to get back to where you just were. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. And we see more and more fighters take their time on the amateur scene now. I've been watching mixed martial arts my whole life. My dad used to wake me up when I was like, I think it was like 7. No, I was probably like 8 or 9 to watch, Pride FC, New Year's Eve shows and things like. So like I'm old school, and I took a break from watching mixed martial arts in like not all of the Connor era, but that like I don't know, mid to late 2000s, just because like I was in college. I was a little preoccupied. I loved hockey. I was like invested in like the Vancouver Canucks and their run in 2011 and things like that. But when I got back into martial arts, that's when I kind of realized more fighters are actually taking their time on the amateur route. It's kind of less taboo than it was back in the day when the sport wasn't as far as it is, as developed as it is today, where it was just like, you're just going to take a fight because they're getting paid. And, maybe a pro league at that time would be in like the amateur rankings in this day and age. But back then, a regional show paid as much as some of the big shows anyways. So you kind of just hopped around and took whatever fight. So why Cage Fury? Was because they're now doing more local shows in Florida, because they have done quite a few in the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
So my coach at Def Ward, Coach Daniel, he's the one that essentially made that connection with Rob Aries and the whole bit. So
okay,
just out of respect, like we're just with that promotion, and they treat us with grace, and like they love us and whatnot. They treat us really, really well. So definitely it was my coach that made that connection, especially them coming to Florida. It just makes it easier to, once we set a certain expectation of like, all right, this is how we represent ourselves as a team, then you earn that right to essentially come back, in my feeling, because you may have a good fight, but if it's back and forth, not really a good decision, or you just lay it on top of the dude, they're not really going to give you a call back, versus they know bring it out every single time. But definitely the connection that my coach made was a big impact to that. And since we've made that staple, now we're just locked in. You know what I mean? Dude,
locked in. Indeed. And it's also because I love Cage Fury FC. Again, I'm very much a nerd when it comes to like following regional shows, especially. And I think it is in the top tier of regional promotions. Like what are some other ones that you think are on their level right now? Like for me, it's LFA for sure. And then honestly, this might be one that's out of left field, but there's one in France that started called Eris. It's Fernand Lopez, the owner of that gym that Cyril Gane, Francis Ngannou came out of. And he's the president of that promotion. It's not as deep as an LFA and Cage Fury as far as the roster talent, but like the production value on Fight Pass and shit it blows my mind. And obviously like Lopez got some money because there's no way like the broadcast would be that extravagant, but it delivers on the fight side as well. So like, what are some other regional promotions that you think are on the level of Cage Fury FC?
I really do believe that they're in the top tier, but when you do speak of like regional promotions, like you said, LFA comes up, and CFFC, like LFA is more of the West Coast, Midwest kind of area, if I'm not mistaken. And then CFFC is more on the East Coast and whatnot. So I think when you speak about regionals, those are the two names that I do hear, LFA and CFFC. And then the European ones, I'm not really too familiar with, but that'd be cool to hop on like a international card or something like that. But in due time, international fight week, you know what I mean? What it is. Right out. That's the goal. That's the goal right there.
In due time, man. Like there's, and I'm not just saying this because you're a guest on the podcast. There's not many guys who I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna go places, and you're one of them, man. And again, I'm no expert, I'm no analyst. I'm just a dude on YouTube talking about the sport I love. But I've watched enough of this.
Exactly, you've been around, like, and there's certain things that I don't like. The energy that I do bring forth when I step in the cage, like I'm there to hurt someone. Like my intention is to hurt, kill, go after my prey, bring back home the body for the family. Because I think about it like barbaric times,
Yeah.
Like, back then, like it was life or death. Like I'm willing to die by my sword, and people say they're willing to do whatever it takes for their family. They go ahead and step in the cage and fight. Like this is something I thrive in, I excel in, and I'm actually pretty good at. To where it's like, hey, look, like I'll step in the cage, fight, we'll come home, and then we'll open up the other businesses whenever the money lines up. But this is the little golden goose egg, the golden egg that's going to make us the money to where it opens those other doors. Because fighting is only this amount of time. And in a sense, we have that second opportunity to come back and make it happen. I mean, we just got to go for it. And then wake up knowing, hey, look, I gave it all I got. and if it just simply does not work out, it is what it is. My family's healthy, I'm healthy, and I want to retire from fighting, not have it retire me.
I love that's your mentality as well, and you can definitely see it. And I feel like that's an edge. It's not necessarily in the sense of like your wires crossed when you get in there and you kind of throw caution to the wind. It's like you go in there with a goal. It's bigger than yourself, and it's kill or be killed. And you can definitely see that reflection in your style. And I just love that, like, you don't just rely on your grappling, which it showed that like you used it in your last fight after dropping your opponent a couple times, but your striking is on, on such a big level, or on such a high level right now, that it's cool to see that everything's kind of coming together for you. And in my opinion, a step up in competition is probably needed to get to that next level in Cage Fury UFC, to get that title. And I'm excited to see you take on guys with, even maybe more professional fights than you at this point, or maybe, even a better record than you at this point, just to like personally as a fan to see like, all right, where's Quinones land, at the top of the division in Cage Fury, and when is he going to get that damn belt? What's your goal in the promotion? Are you thinking like, I'll continue to take, deals if the deals are good, if they help me provide for my family? Or are you like thinking like, is there some sort of plan for you, like say 2 fights, a title, and then, try to get on the UFC's radar, or hell, even another promotion out there in one of the major promotions in North America or beyond?
Where we're at right now, like last fight, I wanted to make sure I was able to make weight within like a 2-day notice kind of deal. You know what I mean? So I started my weight cut like at 135 day before, dropped down to 127, and then woke up the next morning and did one little sweat session. So, and it felt great. Like I felt great. Nothing was aching. So when it comes to making the weight, I can make it with effortless grace and ease. The turnaround fights, like a short notice contract, you get 4-fight deal no matter what. So, and that's where the money. Versus if you do contender, then you may have to show back up like a couple weeks later, and it really, really proves. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if we're talking about money aspect, quick turnarounds, I'm game for a short notice fight. I'm game for a contender. Whatever God has in store, we're ready to knock it out the park.
Like, do you want to talk about some of, well, your inspirations for getting into this sport as well? Like, who? Like you mentioned Georges St. Pierre right off the hop. Who's your favorite fighter? Now, it doesn't even have to be in the world of mixed martial arts. It can be in Muay Thai, kickboxing, wrestling, boxing, whatever. But who's your favorite fighter, past and present?
Georges St. Pierre, John Jones, Dominic Cruz was like when he was like in his prime and everything. As of now, like if he still kept the same, like this styles have just evolved, but the way that he's bounced back from his injuries, like, and prevailed and become a champion again, and things
legend.
Like that he's a freaking. He's one of the, if not one of the GOATs. He belongs on that round Rushmore, whatever it's called. Like he's definitely up there. Jose Aldo's another one, but definitely John Jones and Georges St. Pierre are like my go-to people that I really, really study. I study a lot of. Volkanovski, he's nasty.
Oh, he's going to go down as one of the greats. Like and he's Alexander the Great. He's already great. He's going to go down as one of the best of all time. It's not quiet, but like on his come up, it was a quiet come up because like no one really knew who he was. I don't know, and I think the Ortega fight was like the biggest statement. Like I know the Max Holloway gave him some plug, but I think everyone was like kind of on Team Max despite him losing, and even you know what I mean. But like as soon as he beat Ortega, it was like, holy shit, this guy's for real. Like, I thought he was going out in that guillotine, man. Like, I was like, I've never seen a guillotine so tight. I've never seen someone's veins pop out their fucking skull, and somehow, like, heart of a champion, right?
Like, the heart, the composure, just everything. Like, he exemplifies.
Dude, believe it or not, Georges St. Pierre does not get the love he deserves up north in Canada. Like, when we have, really? top greatest athletes of all time and things like that, like, and this... surprise, it's pretty much hockey players, Olympic runners. I mean, Terry Fox, who a lot of people in the States don't know who Terry Fox is. He ran a marathon. He had cancer. He had his leg amputated. This was like, I think almost 40 years ago now. And he did like a literal cross country run on one leg with his, prosthetic leg. And he did a, like he covered like a good chunk of Canada, and he wanted to run across Canada. So he's always number one as like the greatest athlete of all time. And I cannot dock Terry Fox. He's an absolute legend. But in those lists, dude, very rarely do anyone even include Georges St. Pierre as not only one of the best like athletes, but like one of the best fighters. You know, I don't want to say it's like fighting's taboo in Canada, because it's not, but like after the St. Pierre boom, especially in Eastern Canada, like there hasn't been anybody to really hold the torch. And I feel like the next generation of fans that we see, like the UFC has built, especially with Fight Pass and having all these regional shows and, you know, YouTube and just everyone connected to the fighters and brand these days, compared to the days in the past. Like, it's crazy that Georges St. Pierre, it just kind of fizzled. And like the new generation of sports fans up in Canada, like they know who he is, but they don't know who he is, man. Like a lot of them are like, oh yeah, my favorite fighter is XYZ. And I was like, hello, like, did you not see this guy absolutely dominate? And then you have those casuals who are like, yeah, but didn't Matt Serra knock him out? And I'm just like, oh my God.
and like everything is like different timing and placement. You know what I mean? Like the game is definitely involved, but there's definitely things that he did that were exemplified that people still carry to this day. You know what I mean? Like the way he sets up his takedowns, the way his wrestling was like, and he came from no wrestling background. And that's the biggest thing too. Like, Demetrious Johnson is another guy too. Like you could just, like, you don't have to necessarily have like D1 credentials, black belt credentials, or Olympic credentials and certain things, whether it's boxing, wrestling, whatever, judo, whatever you may have. But if you're willing to work hard and learn everything, you can become a champion in this sport. I truly believe that. If you're well-rounded, those are the people that are going to be most successful, that are just great everywhere, versus just being singletarily great at one particular thing, because it's going to fail at some point.
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, a handful of Olympic wrestlers do well in fighting, but a handful of them don't as well. And I mean, even John Jones, he wasn't like a Division I wrestler either, right? Coming into fighting, he just had that drive, had that talent, and that's what I love about him and Georges St. Pierre too. Is like they came into fighting with very little like background in it. I mean, Jones with wrestling, and I mean, I guess having to fend off his massive NFL-sized brothers, but. And Georges St. Pierre, learned fighting to fight off bullies. So there's that passion and that burn, that fight in them that a lot of people don't have. And I love how you mentioned Demetrious Johnson as well. A lot of people think I'm trolling when I'm online when I'm like, the greatest American fighter of all time is Demetrious Johnson. And I don't say that in any disrespect to John Jones. I just have to say that relative dominance. Yeah, maybe the Killers and the Killers in John Jones' reign and in his division at the time, head-to-head were probably better as far as you look at the talent of what Demetrious Johnson picked off. But Demetrious Johnson didn't have anybody else. Like, those were the fighters that he was given. He cleared out the division multiple times. He's absolutely dominating in one championship still, and he never pissed hot. He never had controversy or anything like that. So for me, I hold Demetrious Johnson in just like a little bit of a higher regard than John Jones for like the whole 360 package. But again, like, I'm no John Jones hater. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. But no, man, Demetrious Johnson, I feel like he holds that American flag for MMA with pride. And I feel like he's such a great, not only just role model, but a great just martial artist who's also just like dominating in the fight game. Before I let you go, Max, there's a couple other sports I want to talk about, because we were going back and forth in text about this, and I was very happy to find out that, as someone who lives in Florida, the fact that you even engage in hockey conversation with this Canadian over here. I mean, look, I got Don Cherry on my, as a bobblehead on my table here. That just warmed my heart, sir. So before I let you go, let's talk about some other sports. My 3 favorite sports, and you're probably gonna be like, yeah, I'm not surprised, are box lacrosse, which is basically lacrosse, but summer lacrosse in a hockey rink with cement and a lot more fighting. Yeah, you have smaller sticks too, and you can put it this way: a 2-hand whack to your opponent is legal. Like it's.
Oh wow! I never heard of like box lacrosse like that. I never.
Oh, dude, there is a league, the NLL, the National Lacrosse League. They're in the States and Canada, and then there's a summer league that's in Canada, and all the highlights are on YouTube. I'll send you some of this shit. You're gonna love it. Yeah. And it's called the Western Lacrosse Association out west, and like. I used to have season tickets to them in college, $25 for 10 games.
Wow.
It was with your student ID, dude. It was some of the best live, and they had like 2,000 seater, junior hockey barn that they'd fill up. And it's just such an awesome sport. So MMA, box lacrosse in particular, and hockey are my 3 favorite sports. Everyone is always like, what's the common denominator? You can beat up your opponent in it. And I clearly like martial arts, and I like violence. But I want to stay on the hockey train a little bit here. What's the connection with you and hockey?
So, I mean, we used to do like little street hockey with like a tennis ball. My brother used to be big, like into like rollerblading and stuff. So we would do like little street games and whatnot. But my older roommate, he used to play in high school in the whole bit. And then we actually live across the street from an ice rink, and that he joined like a little club team and everything. So we went out for a couple practices. Not that I was ever going to join a team, but just to try it out, like just like little scrimmage and whatnot. Dude, I shit you not. I'm going like everyone's going like shoo, shoo, shoo. I'm like, okay, turn. Down fast. I'm like, whoop, 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 whoop. But then the turning was like, all right. Let me turn a little bit. But then by the time I'm like fully turned around, I'm like, all right, back to defending because they're already coming back so fast. And then I've bust my ass a couple of times. Like, not that anyone cracked me or anything crazy, because I'm just too slow. Like by the time I got the puck, boom. Like I know my role when it comes to team games. If I'm not the scorer or the shooter, like I'll try one time, but if I miss, all right, let me just pass this, set up my other teammates. So as far as like anything like crazy stories, like it was just funny stories more so, like trying to go up and down the rink, things like that, like just not being in my own. But dude, I'll tell you what, the workout I got on my calves and like just everything, it was insane. And I'm like, this is a different beast. Like, and every sport has their different avenues where it's like challenging and whatnot, but hockey is something else. Especially, I don't understand how people can just skate backwards and like boom. It's impressive. It's definitely impressive.
It's such a crazy sport, dude. It's a beautiful sport. In fact, that like you got these crazy big oaf of Canadians who like have beer guts yet like the most cut legs you've ever seen because of all the skating. Yep. And I mean, hockey's evolved just like MMA. It used to be so much more brutal back in the day, whereas now, like, again, they're professional athletes versus just hockey players, you know what I mean? Yep. But there's still that aggressive brand there. And again, typical on brand for me, I love watching the like, I love the NHL, but I love like the AHL, I love the ECHL, I love the minors, I love the juniors, because it has that like 90s, early 2000s like grime. It has that like brutality to it. And I grew up with junior hockey. I grew up in small town in Canada, and there were two junior hockey teams, high level junior hockey. So junior A, which are primarily where the NCAA will scout and bring talent from, and then major junior, which is primarily where the NHL looks at for drafting guys. And that's kind of more of like an NHL schedule. Like I think there's like 72 games a season. These kids are taken out of school, you know, billet families, and like they're put into that pro style where junior is more kind of, you know, fitting for college. But I had both of those teams. So Friday night I had, you know, the junior A, and then Saturday I had the WHL. And, you know, my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we didn't go on many family trips, but, you know, $5, $10 for a kid to go into a hockey game. I mean, that's what really my love for sport, and that sport in particular, grew. And funny enough, and I'll tell you a little story. I'm not much of a fighter. Like I did point fighting kung fu when I was a kid, and my sifu was very much like fucking Miyagi. Like we went to the competition, and I was like, "What are the rules?" He's like, "I don't know. Go fight." I'm like, "Okay." So in my mind, and I was 8. This was my first competition, and I looked the guy right. We had headgear, you know, shin pads, whatever, and I just looked at his face, and I was like, "Okay, what's going to take this guy down first?" I was like, I'm just going to break his nose. So boom, right to I think it was like punch elbow combo to the nose. Poor kid, nose shattered. He's crying. Mom's yelling at me. Ref's yelling at me. And I look at my instructor, and he's like, "Oh, disqualified first ever competition." Second real fight, and this will be in textbook Canadian fashion. We did, because I'm surprised that there was a rink right across the street from where you were, based on where you are in the States. In Canada, especially small town Canada, we got rinks left, right, and center. We got outdoor rinks in like colder parts of Canada that they'll just like, the city will flood in the winter and things like that. And my first ever fight was against the bully in elementary school, but it was actually on the ice. And I unfortunately broke my nose this time because I slipped and face hit the ice there. But in textbook Canadian fashion, my first my first school brawl was on a field trip at like, you know, for PE or whatever. We went skating, you know, walked across the street to the local ice rink, and we did like, you know, we had 2 hours of ice time or an hour and a half of ice time just to like chill, do whatever. But yeah, my first ever like real tussle that was outside of competition was, of course, on a field trip on the ice in small town Canada. And to this day, my nose is still just completely fucked, dude. Like it's so bad. Dang. And my mom was so upset that I was fighting. I got like headgear to keep my nose in, like, just think back in like mid 2000s, but I had this like headgear thing for a day to keep my nose in place. And she made me go back to school for final period just so I'd be embarrassed with the fucking headgear. So I learned my lesson. No more fighting. Like, you're in Florida. I won't beat around the bush. Are you a Panthers fan or are you a Tampa Bay Lightning fan? What's your team?
I'm gonna be honest, dude. It would be Flyers. It would be the Flyers.
Oh,
it's because of my buddy, my old buddy that I used to roommate with. He just got me into like the Flyers. I actually went out to a Flyers game and everything like that.
Nice.
So the Flyers and then Lightning.
Dude, that is so awesome.
Because he grew up in Philly and everything too. So like he was just lay it on like, and this is a couple years ago. So like everything was from a couple years back, like 2016 stuff like that. But dude, like the way I would just watch their highlights and stuff, it was like we would just sit down, chill on the couch, and like watch their highlights, and I was like, oh shit, this is pretty tight. I like it a lot.
I'm gonna send you some old Philly scraps, dude, from back in the day. Because again, I'm old school, and I have a friend who runs a YouTube channel that's it's called Fourth Line Voice. I'll hook you up with that too, because I think you and your buddies would appreciate that. He literally calls like small town like news outlets in Canada and the States, and he gets them, and sometimes he'll even go and he'll dig through their like highlight reels from like the 90s, because back in the day highlight reels consisted of fighting. And he just puts fight compilations on online on his YouTube channel of like old school, like we're talking 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Shout out Fourth Line Voice, shout out Darren, and it's just awesome stuff there. I have one more thing to show you here. Have you ever heard? Obviously, like I like violence, I like combat sports. Have you ever heard of the sport Calcio Storico? Okay, so it originated in Italy, and apparently it's the oldest sport recorded in human history. Ancient times in Florence. Basically, if you were born in a section of Florence, I think it was like northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, you have to be born in that section of Florence in a Florence hospital. You are eligible based on your bloodline, your birthright, to play this game, and your team is always going to be that section of Florence, and that's it. You can never be traded. That is your team for life. And they play a tournament once every year, just a 2-game tournament, and you don't play for money or anything. Now, I'll actually bring up a clip here in a sec to show you, but I want to explain to you what this game is. It's in basically like a big sandbox, like a massive just like sand. Yeah, it's kind of like a big lacrosse field, but sand. It's a mix of, and wait for it, it's a mix of American football, rugby, soccer, and MMA. Fighting, anything goes. And how the game works is there's a slit in the wall in this big box, and on each side, and I think they play with a soccer ball or like a volleyball or something. And basically, you just have to get that ball in the slit. Whoever gets the most points, scores the most in 90 minutes, wins the game. However, as you can take down your opponent by any means necessary, and as soon as you or your opponent go to the ground, you can't get back up until a point is scored on either side. So you have offensive linemen who are literally just jacked up, roided up Italian fighters who are just beating the piss out of each other on the front line until someone scores. Dude, it is absolutely insane. And there's a show on Netflix. They did like a series. I think it's called Home Game.
Okay.
And they did a little half an hour episode on Calcio Storico, and it blew my fucking mind, dude. And these guys, like, they're talking like, yeah, like if I can't afford to live in Florence, but like my kid's gonna be born in Florence, so that if they ever want to play this game, they can do it. And at the end, like traditionally the sector of Florence would get a cow to feed the community, and now they still bring out a cow that they say they don't slaughter it, they just party with it, and everyone parties in the street of Florence after these wins. And anyways, when I had to bring this up because I just figured, we talked about hockey. You have that mentality of kill or be killed, and so I wanted to bring up this sport. So upon me explaining this to you, like, what are your initial thoughts on this, and do you think you'd be a fan if it was televised in the States?
Oh, dude, I would absolutely be a fan. Like, just the fact that it's like a bloodline thing, is like the cultural kind of aspect, like that's what makes it like even more like enticing to watch. Like, just know that, hey, look, like your bloodline associated with this specific team, you can't be traded or anything. Like, it makes it more of a better story. And I like those kind of like sports that evolve like with that like rich history behind it, like gladiator, like the Coliseum and stuff like that. Like there's so much history with fighting, and like just like my tattoo, I have a gladiator shield with a wolf casting on it, and there's certain things that represent that gladiator like mindset of like, all right, like we're gonna provide for this like tribe, like this is our freedom. Like back then, now like they do it as a sport. Just that rich story behind it. I think that's definitely something that would make my eyes like gravitate to it.
Yeah, for me, it's like I the gladiator aspect, and because honestly, man, like I was a bigger fan of Pride FC, like over the UFC at that time, because they were both the best. They were both competing. So I stay up all night to watch those Ryzen cards, man. I'm a psycho. I'm still recovering from this last weekend. I think I stayed up like 18 fucking hours watching MMA. But so before I let you go, I'll bring it up here. Check this shit out. It might be a little fuzzy here, but this is essentially the sport.
No, it's clear.
Just looking at some highlights here. And so this is their uniforms, which are kind of gladiator, but like check this shit out, dude. Full on tackles. Linemen just getting the gloves up or getting the hands up ready to fight. And it is televised in Italy. So I found some crazy like pixelated feed this last summer to watch some of it live. But I had a friend who lived in Italy, and he told me about this, and he got to go to, I think he was there for about 7 years, and he got to go to 2 games, which he said was just insane. Yeah, look at this shit, man.
So now he had to stay down that whole time. Okay.
Yeah, until a point scored. Yeah, man. And it's funny because especially on the Netflix show, like some of these guys are, some people work in like IT, some work in sales, and they're just these massive tatted up humans who are like, yeah, it's hard for me to fit in society, but everyone knows. They look at me and they go like, you play Calcio Storico, and fuck yeah, I do. But anyways, yeah, I figured you would appreciate this, man. I figured you'd appreciate this, and I'll definitely send you the link to the Netflix documentary, because I think you'd really enjoy it, especially given that you like that gladiator aspect when it comes to sport. All right, man. So I've taken up more than enough of your time. Before I let you go, please, I want to give you this opportunity to, again, promote any sponsors you have, give any shout outs to anyone who's helped you along the way. And if you have any, merch, I see you guys, you got some Candyman shirts. I don't know if there's like a store or anything coming out, but anything you want to promote, man, please. And if there's anything you want us to promote as well, after this interview or on streams, please don't hesitate to send me a text and be like, Isha, continue to pump my fight, continue to pump this or that. Happy to do so, but the floor is yours, buddy.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it. First, you taking the time to Save Life Project as well. All glory to God, first and foremost, my beautiful wife and family, my baby girl. I do it for the community, the family, the village, the sponsorships, of course. That's my MMA team. Coach Daniel, Coach Drew, Coach Devin, everyone, my teammates that keep pushing me day in and day out to make me grow and be better. And hopefully I reciprocate that same energy too. You guys can follow me on Max_the Candyman on Instagram. I only really use Instagram. And the sponsors, man, always Omega Gamma Delta. That's a men's fraternity I'm a part of. We give back to the community. We make sure that veterans are not going homeless with the Homeless Empower program down here in Florida. Another sponsor, Gene, out of Edgar Elephant Tattoo and Smoke Shop. Not smoke shop anymore, but just a tattoo parlor. He's been with me since my first amateur fight, and it's really got me on how to get everything going. Bartow Ford, they're a big player down here in Florida, largest truck, SUV, car dealership in Florida, and they've been having my back as well. Barbers R Us Plus, The Barber, the shot caller for the nasty designs. P&G is an Oklahoma company, dispensary company. I've actually known them since middle school, so it's actually good buddies of mine. So we just give back and everything as far as that. My godmother, no, not my daughter's godmother's company, Rapid Response Team, they've been looking out this last fight as well. And I'm just extremely grateful for the village that we do have. We're going to keep everything intact. We're going to keep on growing and setting. And thank you so much for having me on your show, bro.
Oh, dude, anytime. I hope this isn't the last time. The keys to the castle are yours. Anytime you want to jump on, talk MMA, talk sport, promote anything you got going on. Hell, if you ever want to jump on for a little bit of those live streams too, don't worry, I won't keep you fucking 6 hours. I'm a psycho. I understand. But I think it would be cool. And we won't tell your brother. And so he'll pop in and he'll be like, oh, what the hell, Max is here. So anyways, anytime you want to use this platform, anytime you want to jump on, talk sports, it's an absolute honor. You're one of the good guys, man. It's a pleasure to talk. Like I said, keys to the castle are yours. Anytime you want to jump on here, you're more than welcome. Appreciate your time.
My man, I appreciate it. Thank you, boss.
Hey, if you came out to support Katie, man, make some noise. That goes to show that there's a big community around here. Tampa, no matter where we go, we're always going to stay humble, stay collected, and come out and collect the. That's right.